Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola and very excited to be joined by two guests today. First up, Ryan Grimm. Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
Glad to have you here. Ryan, of course, both the Intercept and also a contributor to TYT. Also the author of a book that's available right now at Shop TYT. That's We've Got People. Ryan, can you tell people who might not be familiar with the book about what it delves into?
Yeah, it's basically your progressive primer. It's like a history of the progressive insurgent movement going from basically the 1980s, really zeroing in on Jesse Jackson's campaign and drawing a line straight from there up to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Bernie Sanders campaign of 2020. So it's basically the establishment insurgent fight drawn out over the last 30 years. But yeah, support TYT. Get it at their store.
Awesome. I'm curious, around when did you finish? When was the book locked basically for publication?
Like May of 2020.
Okay.
I've been able to update it a little bit since then.
Okay, yeah, because there seems like some obvious, like maybe the second edition can have a bit of a follow-up. So where exactly did we go 6 months after the primary ended?
Yeah, what happened to those people? Yeah,
exactly. No, I think it's gonna be awesome. Yeah, and definitely if you're looking to sort of get an idea of where we've come from, where we might be going, everybody go take a look at the book. It's available, at the places books are sold as well as Shop TYT, which is generally where T-shirts are sold.
I said May of 2020. I meant May of 2019.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Right.
Okay, so it was it was a bit before we knew exactly what was going to end up happening.
Right.
But that's awesome. And then thank you for joining us on the show today. Very excited to have you on. Ryan and I are going to be talking about a couple of stories. And in this first one, which we're going to transition to in just a minute, we might get a bit of a preview of some of the work that Ryan is engaged in right now. So if you're in the chat right now, which it looks like a good number of you are, please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notifications in the future. Every stream, 5 minutes before we end, I get a notification from someone saying, "Hey, I didn't even know this was going on." Well, there's only one way you can do that, and that's by hitting the bell. So with that, Ryan, why don't we jump into the first story?
Sure.
For some time now, we've been talking about the number of generally senators, but also representatives who appear to have used their early access to information about how bad coronavirus was likely to be in the United States to save themselves a little bit of money, either purchasing stocks that seemed likely to go up in the event of a pandemic or selling off stocks before the stock market tanked. And one of the names that showed up the most early on in that was Richard Burr, who had sold quite a bit of stock. It looks like anywhere between a bit more than $500,000 or almost $2 million in one day as he was getting confidential information about the potential spread of coronavirus. And he said along the way, he didn't know anything. It wasn't him. He's not responsible, all of that. But there's some new information coming out that's making that a little bit harder to believe. Particularly that Senator Richard Burr's brother-in-law, Gerald Fouth, who was a post on the National Mediation Board, apparently sold between $97,000 and $280,000 worth of shares in 6 companies, including several that have been hit particularly hard in the market, swoon, and economic downturn. And he apparently did that on the same day that Richard Burr decided to, totally coincidentally, sell off a bunch of his stock. So we have other elements of this story we're going to get to, but Ryan, I'm interested in your take on this. How bad is this for Fouth and for Burr?
Well, Burr is retiring, so you could see Burr's mind working. Let's be clear. He says that he was selling his stocks based on reading the news coming out of Asia in particular, and you know what? Like that's quite plausible. Like there were a lot of people who were publicly saying, look, like this is going to be a pandemic. This is going to be very bad. So a halfway intelligent person who was following this could have seen a stock collapse coming. That it happened on the same day certainly raises eyebrows. And now that we know that his brother-in-law sold on the same day, the coincidences are starting to stack up. And you can imagine Burr's retiring. He's not he's rich, but by Senate standards, he's not rich. Now he's set to get very rich once he leaves the Senate. There are lucrative opportunities for people with his connections. But what it's most damaging for isn't necessarily him, unless they actually to prosecute him. Then he's got serious problems. But for Republicans in North Carolina, because it rubs off on Tom Tillis, who is up for re-election this cycle and is by polling the least popular incumbent senator in his or her home state across the country. He's now behind almost by double digits to a fairly kind of B-level candidate that Democrats have put up in North Carolina named Cal Cunningham, fairly standard blue dog-ish type of Democrat who doesn't have much of a political background. I think he served maybe a term in the state house or something. But he's getting smoked right now in the polls by Cunningham. And the more that Burr is in the news for trading in advance of this collapse, I think the worse it is for Tillis and for Republicans generally in the state of North Carolina, and even for Trump in North Carolina. If the state swings far enough, then he could potentially lose it if the suburbs around Raleigh and the Durham area, et cetera, all swing against him.
Yeah, I think I saw a poll just a few days ago where Biden was up by 4, I think, something like that. I mean, obviously these are polls it's a long way away, and who knows? But yeah, it's a good point. It being in the news could hurt them. So you know what we're going to talk about for a few more minutes. So I do want to give a response from Senator Burr's attorney. This is Alice Fisher, who told ProPublica, which did this reporting on Gerald Fouth, said that, quote, Senator Burr participated in the stock market based on public information, and he did not coordinate his decision to trade on February 13th with Mr. Fouth. She did not respond to a question about whether Burr discussed anything he learned as a senator with Fouth or any other relatives. Maybe she was just busy. I don't know. She just didn't have time to respond to that. Okay, so as you said, it is plausible that if you were following everything that was happening in China and as it started to spread to other countries in the region, and apparently it was spreading worldwide, it just wasn't immediately clear at that point, that you could behave in the way that Senator Burr and others did. But the problem is always going to be he was also getting confidential information. He was putting out statements reassuring everyone that Donald Trump has got this thing as he was acting as if he believed the opposite. And so whether it's obviously not illegal, they're disputing whether it's unethical, but to regular people, it is going to seem incredibly shady that you have access to private information and public information, and you claim that the emergency economic moves that you made were based purely on the one and not the other. Why would we believe that, honestly? And that's why I approve of people like AOC who are saying they shouldn't be owning individual stocks. At the very least, it should be in blind trusts.
And although it actually would be illegal if they could prove that he made the trade based on private information that he got from that briefing, because there is now a law that says that that you cannot trade. You can trade stocks, but you can't trade stocks based on information that you received through your duties as a senator. So, if they can connect that private briefing that he got to some of the trades, if there are emails or texts to his sister or to anywhere else, to his broker, saying this, as he's coming out of that meeting, this is going to be really bad, sell. Then potentially that actually is illegal. But AOC's point is dead on here. It's absurd that members of Congress can own individual stocks and then legislate and regulate and lawmake, in areas that affect the stock prices. David Perdue, for instance, has been wrapped up in this scandal. He's the senior senator from Georgia. Kelly Loeffler is the junior senator from Georgia. Both of them have been caught up in it because both sold a bunch of stocks at the time, February and March, January, and these key moments. Now, some of Perdue's trades are, to me, actually mitigating of the fact that he was purely selling because of the insider information about the coming pandemic. Particularly, he bought shares in Delta, the local, the Atlanta-based airline.
Okay.
And if you were trying to profit off of the coming pandemic, Delta is an airline is the last place that you would put money. So that does suggest to me that either he was making some trades without without thinking about the pandemic, or his advisor was making them on his behalf without any information on that. But then you take it another level further. Congress is debating whether or not to bail out the airline industry, or how to bail out the airline industry. And here's the senator sitting with a bunch of stock in an airline. It's just absurd. Like there's no ethical guidelines that you could draw that would allow that type of thing, just from a pure ethics standpoint. Why these extremely wealthy members of the Senate don't put their money into a blind trust is, I was going to say it's beyond me, but it's because they haven't really suffered a penalty for it in the past. If Loeffler and Perdue go down, you're going to see a lot more wealthy senators move toward blind trusts. Dianne Feinstein has a blind trust, and so she's extremely wealthy. But she doesn't get hit for these types of trades because she can say, look, here's the legal paperwork that says I have no idea what my financial advisors are doing with my money. It's nice to have that much money, that you can not even worry about it. So the Republican operatives are upset with people like Perdue and Loeffler, who set themselves up for a political reckoning by not doing this. And it also creates an uncomfortable conversation in the midst of a terrible economy. So both of them are running for re-election with more than 30 million people unemployed around the country, and there's all this talk about how they have tens of millions of dollars to throw around in the stock market, which just, everyone knows that Republicans are the party of the rich, but that just underscores it in a way that's just in your face.
Exactly. Yeah, no, the point that you made about Delta, that is certainly interesting. To balance it out, let's also remember, though, that he apparently bought shares in a company that produces PPE on the same day he received a classified briefing on the spread of the coronavirus. So,
yeah, that was DuPont. And if you wanted to be devil's advocate for him, you'd say, well, DuPont makes everything.
They make a lot of things. Yes, that is true. Right. That is true.
But yeah, so he also unloaded a ton of casino shares. So that was a well-timed trade because casinos absolutely were eviscerated by the quarantine.
Yeah. Las Vegas is trying to open up, though. Okay, so before we transition to our next story, I do want to read just a few of the comments that have been coming in. We've got Rob Shively, who says, here's a $5 for starting on time. I'm proud of you, buddy. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Rob. We were shockingly on time today. I attribute that to Ryan's professionalism. Matthias says, Ryan, you were awesome. Thank you.
No comment.
Spencer gives a thumbs up. Zane says reps should not be allowed to own stocks directly. Obviously, I agree. Luminia says, love you, John and Ryan. Keep it up. Thank you, Luminia.
Right. So more on Perdue. So I don't know if did you see the story that from the New York Times last night that Kelly Loeffler, when she left her job at International Exchange, which is the company that's owned by her husband, which owns the New York Stock Exchange, she was given an accelerated compensation package of something like an extra $9+ million. Yes. When you leave these companies and you haven't, and your stock options and your other compensation hasn't vested yet, you're supposed to lose that compensation, because the whole point of this vesting scheme is to try to retain executives. Yeah. So if you just give it to them when they leave, that undermines the whole point of it. Now, I'm working on a story that could be up today or tomorrow. That a very similar thing happened with David Perdue. He was put on the board of a company called Cardlytics, which is like a fintech company in Atlanta, which does it's very, very complicated stuff. But basically they use your personal banking information, and they map it with other internet data to try to make it easier for people to market. Hey, how you doing? Good. This is Iris.
Hello, Iris.
So he joined the board in 2010, got a bunch of stock options that year, also in 2012, but then he's elected to the Senate in 2014. Well, this is Virginia. And so at that point, he has to get off the board and can't take compensation anymore from Cardlytics. So according to SEC files, they accelerated his options, basically let him take everything with him. Those options grew to be worth more than $26 million.
Yeah.
Just from serving on the board. And he serves on the banking committee. He serves on a subcommittee that has jurisdiction over a firm like this. It's just rife with conflicts of interest.
Exactly. Yeah, and reasonable people will wonder, if they gave this parting gift to Loeffler, when she's making decisions that could hypothetically impact that company, which she's also connected to through marriage as well, is she going to make a decision based on the best interests of the people of America, the government even, or based on herself? And look, she popped into government a few months ago. She's probably going to be gone in a few months. Why would we extend any good faith that she's going to self-sacrifice and choose the interests of the people, even if it devastates herself economically? I don't have any reason to believe that.
Right. And for Purdue, there's tens of millions of dollars at stake in what is a extremely heavily regulated industry. Because Cardlytics, for instance, because they're working with and building an algorithm around personal banking data and other personal data, that's extremely kind of regulation conscious business. One of the things that they offer to their clients is how good they are at staying within the legal lines that have been drawn around privacy issues in the fintech world. So it's certainly nice to have a former board member in the Senate who you've granted $26+ million in compensation for just sitting on a board.
Exactly. Well, I will look forward to seeing that story. You said possibly today, maybe tomorrow?
Yeah.
Awesome. Want to just read one or two more super chats. One or two were actually addressed sort of to you. Cal says, Ryan went from being congratulated by mainstream for the Dr. Ford story to once again being hated by them for breaking the Reed story. Crazy world. Yeah, it's a temperamental thing.
Yes.
But good work in both cases.
It sure is. And you know what? These liberals, they're going to love the Purdue story, when that comes out. Probably not big enough at a national level for them to 100% move past the current campaign that they're on. But within a couple months, they'll swing back. It's motivated reasoning, and you can't worry too much about it.
Exactly. Yeah. To slightly adapt famous comedian statement, it's all motivated reasoning and it's bad for you when it comes to media. Okay, so with that, why don't we jump into our second story? Okay. Great story out today on The Intercept by Ida Chavez about how some state governments appear to be sort of preemptively working with companies to track down those employees who might refuse to come back to work when their economy is reopened, even when many medical experts are saying that there's still a lot of reason to believe that the threat of COVID-19 is not substantially decreased, and these workers are justifiably worried about being exposed to it. So I want to read just a few excerpts from the article, which is available right now on The Intercept. There's now a form on the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services website for employers to confidentially report employees, quote, who quit or refuse work when it is available due to COVID-19, flagging them for the state's Office of Unemployment Insurance Operations. As of right now, Ohioans who are unemployed as a result of the pandemic but don't qualify for regular unemployment benefits can also register for a new federal unemployment program, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. This includes coverage for individuals whose doctors have advised staying home and for those who have childcare duties, but so far, employees aren't protected if they're afraid of catching the virus at work, which, of course, many of them will be. And this system seems to be set up in a way that the government will be able to be told anonymously which employees are refusing to come to work for other reasons and which are just afraid of, exposing themselves or their families to a fatal pathogen to potentially cause them to not have access to this special unemployment fund.
Yeah, they're using the threat of the law and of economic misery to try to force people into what they consider unsafe conditions. It's blunt, it's direct. It's done in, as you saw, it's done in collusion with employers. The forum promises, pure, strict confidentiality between, the bosses and the government, so that employees don't come back and say, wait, you turned me in to the state after I told you that, my mother and my grandmother are both living with me, and so I was nervous about infecting them with coronavirus. And there's more than 30 plus million people unemployed, many of whom are looking for work and want work. And so, hey, I'm still on over here. So let those folks have those jobs if they want it.
Exactly. By the way, I'm seeing in the comments people are saying that today TDR stands for the Darling Report, and someone said that's the next generation of TYT reporters. You never know. Maybe New York Times, maybe Washington Post.
There you go. Anything's possible.
So hello kids. So I wanted to add, by the way, that when if you're not in Ohio right now and you're trying to get an idea of how reasonable is it that these employees are worried about being exposed to COVID-19, as of when I checked this morning, Ohio so far has had 21,576 cases of coronavirus. God only knows how many they actually have, but that's the number confirmed, and over 1,200 deaths already. So they're very worried. And by the way, like, put it in the context of what other states are doing as well. I saw reporting this morning that the Hillstone Restaurant Group in Texas told their employees, you are not allowed to wear a mask or any sort of facial covering, potentially because they're worried about sending the signal that things are not safe. Even though by doing that you are making things less safe. And they told their employees that they're going to be offered 40-hour schedules right now, and if they refuse them, they will not be eligible to be rehired at a later date. Like, you come back now and disarm yourself against the virus, or potentially lose your job forever.
Right, and Ohio is one of the states that has behaved more responsibly than any others. They shut down earlier than most states. The Republican governor, Mike DeWine, suspended the presidential campaign or the election, the primary election there, while other states recklessly went forward. But this shows that a lot of the public health concern, stops at a certain class level in this country, and that when there's a competition or a conflict between the upper class, ruling class, having people serve them, and the public health of the people doing the serving, it's going to be the upper class that wins out.
Yeah, it's looking that way, and we're sort of waiting to see. We had the reopening of a few states this last Friday and the Friday before that. And so, in 5 days, in 10 days, we might begin to see the initial spike that comes from that reopening, assuming that the testing is even being done to the extent that we'll be able to find it. And I hate the situation that these employees have been put in, where they're being put out of work, and most of what they're hearing on right-wing media is, no, we want to reopen. We don't care if it's dangerous. And we want that because we care about these people who are out of work and they're losing money. And that's what they're saying. They're never saying the government needs to provide aid to them. The government needs to send out an additional check. The government needs to do anything. It's that potential set of solutions is 100% ignored. The only way to help these people that they swear they're worried about is to send them into the breach. Call them warriors, disarm them, and send them in to potentially die.
It is true that people are suffering economically through this. There's absolutely no question about that, and that should be foremost in politicians' minds. But like you said, the answer to that is to take care of those people. We are asking them to stay home, to protect and to benefit the public, so the public can take care in return of those people. The answer is not, like you said, to throw them into the mall.
Yeah, exactly. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us for these stories. I really do appreciate it. We're going to be looking for your next story to hit the Intercept. Perhaps we can talk about it in the near future. And everyone, not only should you follow Ryan for reporting that, depending on how you view politics, will either delight you or apparently enrage you. give or take, what, every once in a while. But also he just does great work, and so you're definitely gonna want to follow him. So Ryan, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, John.
And stay safe out there.
You too.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. So we are going to attempt to connect with our second guest. Nando Vila is going to be joining us, assuming everything works. This is a brave new world. We're doing this live, but it has worked before, so we're going to try. Hey, Nando, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
That was very fast. Let me get you set up. We are live on the internet, so careful. Oh. Okay. How's it going?
Hey.
Okay, your video is looking good. We're going to get you set up in this two-shot here. Make our domes about the same size, ideally. Thank you for joining us today, everybody. First of all, you definitely are already familiar with Nando, but if you're not, did you know he has a podcast you can tune into right now? Tell us about the podcast, Nando.
It's a very important podcast in these trying times. It's maybe the most important podcast in the history of podcasts. It's an Entourage rewatch podcast.
Yeah.
And as everyone sort of suffers in depression as the world crumbles all around them, it's good to look back to a simpler time where the bros could just be bros, and it was all about just, making money, getting the girls, and making cool movies.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That sounds awesome. I actually never watched Entourage. But I do know people who loved it. I am curious though. I know that the sort of rewatch podcasts have become this like awesome new thing. There's one for The Office. There's one that's a little bit nerdier, but I'm looking forward to an upcoming one for Star Trek Voyager. And they've had people who were on the show. Are you looking to have people from the show come on?
We would absolutely love to do that. Our early episodes, we were a little mocking of them, so maybe they'll be a little, maybe they won't be so happy. But yeah, we would love to have some of the actors on. The two of the Sopranos actors are doing a very good Sopranos rewatch podcast.
Oh, I didn't know
Michael
about that
Imperioli and Steve Siripa. Chris
That's
Moltisanti and Bobby Bacala. So yeah, it's become a big thing. I can see the appeal of looking back at a show that was like very fundamental in your time, and then sort of looking back to evaluate it and compare it to its time and place. And Entourage is very much a time capsule into the early aughts. I mean, everything from the clothes to the blatant racism and homophobia to just the way life was and the way priorities were like pre-financial crash. Like it's very much like a looking into the past.
That's funny. Yeah, I've been rewatching Married with Children recently.
Wow.
And it's a time capsule, man. In a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So everybody tune into that. That's the Let's Pot It Out podcast. So go check out that. So we have a few stories we're going to talk about, Nando, and very excited to get your perspective on these. In between, everyone, we will be responding to your comments and all that, so feel free to continue sending those in. But why don't we launch into our first story? Just a few days ago, there was an attempted coup against the government of Venezuela. I say coup, maybe it's coup, I don't know, because the entire thing seems a little bit laughable. I mean, not in some senses. People lost their lives, and it was an attempt to overthrow the government of a country, and apparently the U.S. wasn't directly involved. We'll get into that. We're going to have all the details. The story's been out for a few days, but, Nando, I especially wanted to talk about this with you, because I was curious, have you been predicting this for some time now?
Oh, yes, this was inevitable. I mean, there was an attempted coup last year in 2019 when a bunch of kind of Venezuelan military people loyal to Juan Guaido, who's the leader of the opposition, sort of attempted to rise up and topple Maduro, but it also crashed and burned in farcical fashion. But at the time, a lot of countries recognized the Guaido government as the quote-unquote legitimate government of Venezuela. So it's only a matter of time before they gave it another shot. And this one is just particularly hilarious. Like it really does feel like a very 2020 story, in that it's just the sheer incompetence and farcical nature of it is very much something that is true to our time. You know, it's basically like a private security contractor who is an ex American military guy. He was a medic in Afghanistan and Iraq. Started this private security company, got in contact with some former Venezuelan military guys who are running these training camps in the Colombian desert near the Venezuelan border, and were under the leadership of this kind of old Venezuelan major general who has since been arrested and indicted in New York on drug trafficking charges. You know? And yeah, so what they basically trained a group of a few hundred men to basically invade Venezuela and topple the government. I mean, it's just you hear something like this and you're like, what were they thinking? You know, and it just seems like everyone they came in contact with, from some of Trump's personal security guards to leaders of the Venezuelan opposition in Miami, like this guy that runs an arms company out of Miami, who's a Venezuelan dissident. You know, everyone who just like got a whiff of these guys was like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. Yeah. And they went ahead anyway. They were like, you know what it reminds me of? It's kind of like the Fire Fest of coup attempts.
Of coup attempts?
Yeah, where they're like, F it, let's be legends. Let's just do it. Is it
like, you know, they say that our entire culture now is reboots? Is this just like the Bay of Pigs, but like with less of a chance of success?
It really, like, the Bay of Pigs absolutely had a greater chance of success than this thing, because at least the Bay of Pigs, the upper echelons of the U.S. government were actively involved. Like the CIA was actively involved, and John Kennedy knew about it. The president knew about it. Yeah. This seems like they were trying to get in touch with people in the Trump administration, and even the Trump administration was like, no, I don't really want anything to do with you guys.
Yeah, and look, so, it seems so farcical. Like, it sounds like the plot of a movie like on Netflix starring Adam Sandler or something like that. It's obviously incredibly serious, and so I feel sort of bad for laughing about it. Like, people lost their lives. What they were attempting to do was incredibly serious. It seems so 2020. Like, it was 60 people in like little speedboats with 50 additional. The Venezuelan military has 130,000 active duty soldiers and another 220,000 paramilitary loyalists. That is about as big as world militaries are.
Yeah, it's one of the most heavily armed countries in the world. Like, I mean, that's always been the real tragedy about the situation in Venezuela, is that there's a very real chance of some sort of civil conflict happening. And if that were the case, it would be unbelievably violent, because there's just a lot of weapons lying around in Venezuela. Yeah. There's a lot of people are armed. It wouldn't be just a kind of little skirmish between two militias. Like there's hundreds of thousands of armed people in Venezuela, like ready to fight. So it would be unbelievably bloody. And like you said, this is a very serious situation in many ways, and it fits a long-term pattern. I mean, the United States and the CIA supported a coup attempt on Hugo Chavez in 2002 in Venezuela. They actively and vocally supported the 2019 coup attempt through John Bolton and even Trump, and they even recognized the government. So, you know, this is part of an ongoing long-term pattern, and it just the real tragedy is that it on the one hand, you know, like no one loves the Maduro regime. Like, there's no love for the Maduro regime. But the Maduro regime has a point.
Really fast. They say, you don't have to say that, but at the same time, in 2020, you sort of have to acknowledge that.
Obviously. Yeah, if not, you're like an Assadist or a Maduro lover or something. You know, it's like, but you know, when he says, like, listen, we're struggling because of U.S. sanctions and because we're constantly under siege by the most powerful nation in the history of the world, you know, he's got a point. Like, how can you operate a country in any sort of sane way while you are literally under attack by a country like the United States?
Yeah.
So
we're going to turn in just a second to the potential U.S. involvement, but really fast, I just want to add a couple extra details for potentially signs this wasn't going to result in these 60 people occupying the royal palace and ruling. One was that they live tweeted the raid. Great idea. They apparently had an airsoft gun. Now, they didn't just have airsoft guns, but they had an airsoft gun.
Right.
And one of the organizers of the raid apparently seems to be a big devotee of the QAnon conspiracy theory, which doesn't necessarily say anything, but also at the same time kind of says some things.
Yeah. No, the Silver Corp, this is the company the private security company that this guy was founded. They have an Instagram account, and it is one of the funniest things you could ever.
I didn't see that.
Oh my, John! As soon as this broadcast ends, just fire up the Instagram and look up the Silver Corp Instagram account. Like, it'll be a picture, like a selfie of the guy, as the sun's setting, and he'll be like, the golden hour, and then like hashtag technical training, hashtag live shooter training, hashtag like, it's truly, stuff like that. It's truly spectacular. Like the capture, like it's just the whole thing feels so modern in so many ways.
Wait, hold on.
It's just great. There you go.
Just don't overthrow governments.
It
seems like a basic rule. It's not one of the commandments, but like arguably should be. This is
why I hesitate to be like, oh, this so and so foreign person is so bad, because like what flows from that is this instinct to do something about it. Like if that person's so bad, we have to do something about it. So there is like sometimes like, oh, look at all the suffering, we should do something. But what ends up happening is always the same thing. And you go to war with the military machine you got, and we got the United States military machine, and that is more like a blunt instrument that just shatters like whatever's in its way. It's not like this surgical thing that can achieve sort of narrow goals. Like it usually destabilizes an entire region. Usually a lot of people die, and usually it ends up worse than previous.
Yeah, like they say, when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Well, when the only tool you have is the most bloated, overfunded military in the history of our civilization, every problem looks like you should bomb it, I guess. The metaphor falls apart. And so does the country that we inflict this on. So anyway, let's turn to us. So was the U.S. involved in this attempted overthrow of the government of Venezuela? We don't know for sure, but we do have a little bit of contextual information. We had Mike Pompeo, who said, as for who bankrolled it, we're not prepared to share any more information about what we know took place. We'll unpack that at an appropriate time. We'll share that information that makes good sense. That's a very careful way of saying that. Really fast.
It's not just being like, no, we don't have nothing to do with this insane thing. Like how easy would that be if that were true?
It seems like it. Here, let me see. I'm having a bit of an issue here, but let me see if I can get this going.
There was no U.S. government direct involvement in this operation. We'd have been involved, it would have gone differently.
Okay, so he did not, really fast, he did not say there was no U.S. involvement in this. He said there was no U.S. direct involvement in this. Well, that says basically everything.
Well, that was the whole appeal of the Bay of Pigs in the original kind of version of this TV season. Like the plausible deniability of using kind of expats rather than regular American forces was part of the appeal. So like, if it goes wrong, you can just be like, no, that wasn't us. If it goes right, they could have claimed credit.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder, will we find out more about this? I mean, we know that there have been connections between Silver Corp and, like, they'd done private security for Trump before. Like, one of the individuals involved in the raid is photographed, like, providing personal security. That doesn't necessarily mean anything except that our government is buffoonish and the people that they give contracts to. But I wonder, will there be an investigation? Will there be any desire to find out? Because unfortunately, so many people in the Senate, do they really want to discover what's going on and potentially make it look bad and forestall future attempts to interfere with the regime? I don't know.
You mentioned the Senate, and I've been listening to a podcast called Fiasco about the Iran-Contra affair, and it's just wild to look back at that time and see Senate Democrats like very aggressively investigating the administration and voting to stop funding to the Contras in this kind of insane attempt that they were doing. Like that is so unthinkable these days for the Senate to do something like that. But they could, but they won't. I suspect that if we find anything out about it, it'll be through reporting from journalists. But it's one of those things where it fits the larger U.S. strategic goals, and I'm sure some elements of the U.S. state were aware of this and were just kind of like, yeah, fine, go ahead. Like they're not going to stop it, but it's not like this was a plan that was hatched at the highest levels. I don't think
It doesn't seem like it.
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, for their sake, you'd hope not.
Yeah.
And so, and really fast, just a little bit more on sort of the monetary aspect of this, because when you see the details and how unlikely it was to actually succeed, it makes you wonder, well, first of all, why did anyone think? Like the people who got involved in it, like, and people lost their lives, people died. Why?
Yeah, people died.
Why would you think that this could work? Well, there's two potential monetary explanations. One is that Jordan Goudreau, the ex-Green Beret who recruited and organized it, apparently said that he had a contract with Guaido or something. Like I haven't seen any evidence that it actually exists, but that's what was out there. And then you also have this. Just a few weeks ago, on March 26, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo promised very big rewards for information leading to the arrest and or conviction of the top people in a Venezuelan regime that the United States no longer recognizes. $15 million for Maduro, $10 million each for 4 of his top officials, all charged by Washington with drug trafficking. Now, that is not saying it's a bounty, hand us Maduro, you get $15 million. But also, what is information leading to his arrest? Like, he's in Venezuela, pay me. Yeah. I don't know. What is that information?
He's in the capital. He's
got a house.
They know where he lives. They know where the government is. Like this
seems like a wink and a nod to if you can bring him in, maybe if you get 50 people who definitely can't occupy a country, but maybe could kidnap someone.
Or assassinate him.
Or assassinate, yeah, that's true as well. The entire thing, again, very 2020, very unfortunate, and as you pointed out, not the first time, potentially not the last time.
I doubt it will be the last time.
Yeah. Okay, before we transition to another story, let's see what's been going on with the super chat.
Ooh.
Let's see. There were
John, you're like a wizard managing this whole show.
Oh, thank
it's
you.
Very the people at home can't see the whole dashboard, but it's like
I'll take a screenshot at some point. Yeah, we have our streaming setup. We have all of the comments. We have a thing that we can switch between social media, Slack, YouTube, or the rundown, and then the graphics thing. And then on that window, you have Nando. Anyway, let's see. What about Governor Abbott's hot mic moment yesterday? I actually hadn't seen that. I did hear that there were actually stories being written about the fact that the home-based session of the Supreme Court, someone flushed a toilet in the background. I saw there was headlines about that.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice.
Also, they played like "Live and Let Die" as Trump like walked out.
I like that. I want to interview the person who put that on.
Yeah.
So you didn't see, but as Ryan Grimm was on before you, his kids came in and started waving to the camera and everything. So Gabby tweeted us at #TDR Live saying, "Okay, Nando better have a cute sidekick in the same league as Ryan Grimm's two darlings."
Oh man, I wish I did, but I don't.
Do we have a pet? Is there?
We have a girlfriend, but she's not dressed for the occasion.
Okay, no worries. Okay. Kirsty says, "Thanks for keeping me sane. One of your older fans that looks forward to your reports every day. Thank you." Let's see. The Sing in the Left asked if we had seen the Postmaster General story. We will actually be talking about that a little bit later on. Okay. Rob says, "I've never seen Nando so underdressed."
Well, better enjoy it.
That's true.
I thought about wearing a tuxedo for the damage report, but yeah.
You know, I was going back through some of the episodes of your like political sketch show, and you had some great costumes in those.
Thank you. I am a big fan of costumes.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember there was one. It was like a noir premise.
Yeah.
You like fill in a glass and everything. It was just everything looked so good. There was the Top Gun sort of send up. I don't even know how you did that. But it looked great.
Green screen, a lot of green screen. Mm-hmm. It was fun.
Yeah, but you were like actually in a cockpit, sort of like wasn't.
We built a little cockpit.
That's crazy.
We had an amazing set designer who was like, she built that thing in like 2 hours.
Wow. Well, okay, so I can put windows on a screen and manage it. I don't have a set designer.
Right.
Nice work there. Okay, with that, why don't we jump to another story? I'm gonna get this ready to go. I don't think we'll need Silvercorp anymore, but that is funny. Okay. For some time, Donald Trump has been sending signals that the the slavish devotion of most of the hosts on Fox News is not enough these days, and he's looking for something new. Anytime someone, Shep Smith or Chris Wallace criticizes him, he will tweet knee-jerk that he wants a different channel. And sometimes he'll credit one in particular, and that is OANN. And recently, he alluded again to this desire for a new right-wing channel, tweeting, Chris Wallace is nastier to Republicans than even Deface the Nation or Sleepy Eyes. The people who are watching Fox News in record numbers, thank you, President Trump, are angry. They want an alternative now. So do I. And then he turned to crediting OANN, saying, I hate to be promoting AT&T, but OANN is great news, not fake news. Everybody should be carrying them. So why is this important? Why is this in the news now? Well, apparently, although it's disputed, some in the Trump family are apparently looking to get involved with OANN. According to sources, this was reported by Vanity Fair, an investor group aligned with Don Jr. and the Dallas-based Hicks family has acquired a major stake in One America News Network. Sources said the deal has been dragging on for months and hasn't yet closed, apparently over question of how much it's worth. The leadership of OANN says they want $300 million. I've looked at their production value. I think it's overvalued at $300 million, but that's what they want. Nando, we don't know for sure, and I've got the responses from some of these parties saying it's not totally true, but what do you think about the possibility that OANN could become a competitor to Fox News and that the Trump family might become involved with it?
Well, I remember back in 2016, before Trump won the election, when everyone assumed he was going to lose the election and everyone was like, well, why is he doing this? It was kind of a common knowledge that what he was really interested in was using the presidential race as a platform to launch some sort of media entity. That he likes the media, he likes being involved in the media, and that he wanted to have his own TV network. So that has always been in the cards.
Yeah.
I think I would not be surprised if they do actually do this, like if they do actually pull it off. I would not be surprised if they actually gave Fox News a run for their money. I mean, the reason why this like you said, the network has like terrible production values, but what they're really paying for is distribution. I mean, that's the name of the game in cable. I mean, that's this is a channel. I mean, any channel could be just like changed, but like the distribution is the hard part to get. So if they do get distribution, which I'm guessing as the former president he probably would, I could see them giving Trump. I could see them giving Fox News a run for the money. I mean, they love Trump. People love the Republicans love him. They love him. They don't like these like never Trump idiots. You know what I mean? They love Trump. He's got like a super high approval rating amongst Republican voters.
That's true.
If he figures out that he could outflank Fox from the right, I would not be surprised if people went with it.
Yeah, and look, right now, they apparently are distributed to 35 million homes, which is amazing. Now, that's about a third of what Fox News has, but considering that it seems like a joke, that's a lot. They are really out there. And, in terms of, the fact that it's a news channel, but that just openly, it's just conspiracy theories and absolute not. No, it's Pizzagate, and it's mildly more rational than InfoWars. Is that going to hurt them? Why would it?
No, absolutely not.
Why would that possibly hurt? Like people, like Fox is bound by the fact that they are very supportive of Donald Trump, but they will occasionally, some of their hosts will criticize him. OANN is not going to do that. They've tweeted at him that we're your biggest supporters. And like, I understand that some people would think, well, but the right always criticizes MSNBC for being biased. Don't they want unbiased news? No. No, they don't want that. And so that doesn't seem like it's going to hurt them.
The sad reality, John, is no one wants that.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. It's just like Diamond and Silk were just fired from Fox News. Like, okay, they're probably going to have a show on OANN. OANN is where Tommy Lauren comes from initially.
Yeah. No, it's, again, like, I think people love Fox, and the real driver of Fox is the sort of more insane like red meat stuff. Like the other kind of more sober, serious people on Fox are just kind of like eating your vegetables and, like before you eat your ice cream. Like if they could have ice cream all the time, I could see it doing really well. It's just funny because I looked up when we told me we were doing this story. I looked up who owns OANN, and it's this company called Herring Networks, and they own this other cable channel called AWE, which stands for Wealth of Entertainment. But previously, that channel was called Wealth TV, which is just
That's
amazingly
perfect.
Trumpian. Yeah, it's perfect.
That is perfect. Really fast. I want to go to a little bit of a video of Donald Trump's recent obsession with calling on OANN, because even though, you know, they're promoting Pizzagate and everything, they have reporters in the White House press corps. So here's a bit of that.
Okay, a couple of questions. Go ahead, OAN. We'll take a few questions. Emerald, OAN, please, OAN. OAN. Very good. Thank you very much. They treat me very
They treat me very nice.
What?
And that that tone as the female reporter starts to talk. Oh,
yeah.
We know what that
and
is.
he keeps on calling it OAN, but isn't it OANN?
I know. I've heard it called both. It is literally OANN, which is why that's what I'm calling it. But I don't know. It's one letter more than most networks tend to have, I guess.
Right.
But anyway, and really fast, we should acknowledge that a spokesperson for Don Jr. says that this isn't true. Robert Herring, who is the founder of OANN, says that they don't know anything about Trump Jr. buying the company, and they're not anxious to sell. But of course, if they are trying to sell, they're going to say that they're not anxious to sell. So who knows? I mean, this could amount to absolutely nothing. That's totally possible. It could also amount to, in August, Donald Trump having a show he hosts as president. That seems crazy, but like, are you going to bet all of your money that that won't happen? That he won't have a show that he co-hosts with Tommy Lawrence? Something like that.
No, I would 100%. That is definitely a plausible scenario. I did not discount that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's turn to other news. Okay. I just saw this going around this morning, apparently filmed by an employee at a Publix supermarket in Miami. It features an individual apparently quite frustrated with their policy of requiring masks, and he goes on a quite deranged rant against them. Take a look.
This is a false flag, fake pandemic. You are in violation of my constitutional rights and my civil rights. I've already warned you. You expect it. I'm filing a class action lawsuit. You can take your fake, global terroristic, false flag attack, shove it up your... You're terrorists. You're in violation of my constitutional and civil rights. There's no pandemic. I'm filing a lawsuit. I have a right to buy groceries without being forced to participate in terrorism.
Excuse me? You need to wear a mask. Do you understand that? To come in the store?
You're violating my constitutional
Okay, well,
rights.
this is private property.
This private fucking property has food. I have a right to buy food without being forced to participate in a fake global false flag pandemic. There's no pandemic. You mass arrested and executed for terrorism. You.
Okay, so I acknowledge some of that was hard to follow because we had to bleep out the swears, but it does end with him saying that he wants the employees of Publix to be mass arrested and executed for terrorism.
Now,
you're originally from Miami, correct?
Yeah, I'm from Miami. I know that. I know that Publix, and I get it. I get it, guy. The Publix subs are the best. They're better than Subway. They're better than Quiznos. They're the best, and I get it. You want your Publix subs, but yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, he probably watches OANN. I don't know. What can I say? It's a crazy time we live in.
I love that you've been to that particular Publix.
Oh,
I've been
absolutely.
to a Publix in Florida, but I've not been to that particular one.
I'm like 90% sure that that's the Publix in Brickell.
Oh, interesting. So look, what I want to throw out is that the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union, which represents 1.3 million food and retail workers, says so far 72 U.S. food industry workers have died from that false flag fake pandemic, and nearly 3,000 have shown symptoms of the coronavirus. Those numbers are only going to grow, even if we wear our masks. People working at these supermarkets have been exposing themselves at a very high level, like far more than regular people. They've been asked to make a sacrifice that they are barely compensated for.
Yeah.
They don't deserve to be abused. And then look, beyond that, I've been trying to do my best to fight against misinformation around this from the very beginning. I have a feeling that guy probably does not watch the damage report. And look, he didn't attack them. He apparently wandered off. No arrests were made. But I am worried about, every day I see a story of a guy who, there was yesterday a guy wiped his nose on an employee at a supermarket.
Jesus.
Because he'd been asked to leave. There was the guy in the San Diego supermarket who was wearing a KKK mask. Like, there are crazy people that are being misinformed and then sent out there to have a problem by the same people. Like, Fox is misinforming them and then promoting these protests, saying the lockdowns are fake. Tucker Carlson saying there's no scientific reason to believe that the lockdowns mattered. Laura Ingraham saying there's no reason to socially distance and masks are unscientific. And the people who are going to suffer from that are mostly Fox viewers, but also the workers who come into contact with them.
The customer is always right is one of the more noxious phrases and ideas that has become sort of canon in the American religion, right? And it's this idea that in any sort of situation in which you are a customer, either at a supermarket or at a restaurant, that you are the dictator of that interaction, and that the person in front of you is basically your slave to do whatever, is anything you want. And it just creates this environment of no real solidarity, like what you're talking about. Like this, these supermarket workers are risking their lives for what, $16 an hour,
maybe.
You know what I mean? Yeah, if they're lucky. And to see people just like so blatantly dismissive of them and hostile to them is absolutely dispiriting. I mean, it's just, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just, It really is just incredibly sad.
I agree. And a couple people in the comments are pointing out the security guard, I believe at a dollar store, that was killed for trying to get people to wear their masks, was literally killed. And these are people who,
again, it's like when you're starting to see, like what you're starting to see with Tucker Carlson and Fox and all these people sort of changing their tune a little bit on the coronavirus, starting to question the narrative and all that stuff. Like you can sort of track this perfectly with, oh my God, like we need these workers to be working. If not, like our bottom line is going to be affected.
Yeah.
Right. And if public health ever comes up against profit or the bottom line or the interests of the ruling class, the thing that always wins out is the interests of the ruling class.
100%. Yeah. And like there was like briefly the drive to reopen back around May 1st or whatever. Trump said, we're going to reopen on Easter, and there was pushback, and he actually backed down. And that bought us a couple of weeks, and then that's it. He's like, he doesn't care. He was on the news a couple days ago saying we're doing too much testing right now. Like, we're doing less than half of the bare minimum of what experts say we need to be doing to reopen. And he says that is a waste of testing. They've totally come around to the numbers don't matter. If another 70,000 die, it doesn't matter. Oh, and by the way, the numbers aren't real anyway. Right. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They're being inflated. So you don't have to actually believe that people are dying at a rate of several thousand each year. He's moved on. He doesn't care anymore. His voters don't seem to care, even though a lot of them are dying. And I just wonder if a second spike happens, if another pandemic happens, if it comes back in the fall or the winter, why would we believe that they would take it more seriously then?
No, they would take it. They would probably take it less seriously. I mean, they might do like some sort of targeted thing to protect certain wealthier areas and stuff like that. But I don't see them doing this like lockdown ever again. I mean, the practical effects of the lockdown are similar to those of like a mass general strike, and it really is burning, like it really is affecting their bottom line. So it's almost like they accidentally inflicted a general strike on themselves, and they're seeing just how much that hurts, that hurts them. And so they're not going to do that again. There's no way they're going to do that again.
I'm curious. So we're going through this experience, and we have a lot of, not everyone obviously from that video, but we have a lot of people sort of publicly acknowledging these people who allow our country to function, that we don't care about, we don't pay them enough. So now people are starting to acknowledge some of these people who are actually essential. Although the government doesn't seem to care about the number of unemployed, the fact that they're not going to be able to pay rent. I think a lot of people are thinking about it. Do you think that there's any sort of medium or long-term effect of this that might nudge the country in the right sort of pro-worker direction?
I think yes, it's possible. It's not guaranteed. I do think that things are going to get a lot worse before that would happen. You know, we don't. The thing is that this is the greatest economic crisis probably in the history of capitalism. Mm-hmm. You know, it's probably going to be greater than the Great Depression from 1929 through the 30s. Mm-hmm. And the world that emerges on the other side of that is completely unpredictable. I mean, at least back then, you had very large labor unions and a real semblance of mass politics as a result. That does not exist today. Yeah. There is no vehicle for mass collective struggle. Labor unions are cowering and weak in the United States. So the political economy that emerges from such a profound economic crisis is going to be so different that it's going to be hard for anyone to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What is happening right now is that the ruling class understands that the house is burning and they need to loot the safe. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the bailout that was passed a few weeks ago with overwhelming bipartisan support, and even barely a peep from the even dissident left in Congress and Senate, is a fundamental reorganization of the American political economy, and it's going to have effects for years, even decades. And the only hope we have is some sort of regeneration of mass politics, of mass collective struggle. And it's hard to do that in the pandemic because you can't go outside, you can't meet with people, you can't organize in collective spaces. Yeah. And it's just hard to do that when there is no vibrant labor movement. It's the only weapon that has proven successful in history to affect any sort of real change, you know? And it's the only thing. There's literally been nothing else. Mm-hmm. So,
you know, I'm glad that you mentioned that bailout, because we do have to bear in mind that no matter what happens or doesn't happen, they already got those trillions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
That is theirs. And one of the most corrupt people in the history of U.S. government has almost unilateral control to hand it out to whoever he wants. So that's a great setup. Maybe we'll get another $1,200 someday, but probably not. But they got trillions of dollars. Yeah. And so you point out the possible paths that this could go down. In a dark comedic sense, could it be any more perfect that just as the pandemic was starting to hit the U.S., we had two Democratic presidential nominees representing very different directions we could go in, and the system, rushed to choose one that best case scenario brings us back to something like 6 years ago, rather than helping us weather this storm and correct the issues that were already in the system before COVID-19 was ever even heard of?
I think that is a incredibly rosy reading of a potential Biden presidency, because here's what's going to happen. Because this crisis is orders of magnitude larger than 2008. Uh-huh. Okay, and look at the backlash that was hoisted on the Obama presidency because of their sort of weak reaction to that crisis, right? Yeah. And I suspect that a Biden administration wouldn't even be as aggressive as the Obama administration was in responding to 2008. So the nightmare scenario is that the economy is in a historic collapse. Okay, look at the number of unemployed. I mean, there's 33 million people that filed for unemployment in 7 weeks. You know, these are unprecedented numbers. The nightmare scenario is the Democrats win, and then they oversee the quote unquote recovery of such a scenario, and obviously it's going to be terrible, and they're
100% austerity.
100% austerity. Larry Summers is going to run the economy, or you know what I mean. Like Michael Bloomberg is going to be the Secretary of Treasury, and it's going to be awful. It's going to be just another giant handout to the rich, and it's going to fuel another major right-wing backlash to that. You see what I mean? Like that's the nightmare scenario, and it's probably the likely scenario if Biden wins the presidency. So I don't think that there is any hope for a return to 6 years from that is gone. There is no returning. The economy is in such a collapse that there's no putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. There is only some sort of new thing that's going to come.
Yeah.
And yeah, the sort of coalescing around Biden from the Democratic Party, from Barack Obama and all the power players, is like an incredible, like it's almost like a black pill moment, right? You know, like it's like they don't care. They don't care about any of this stuff other than enforcing their own status quo, their own privilege, and their own power and control over the society.
When Ryan Grimm was on, we were talking about Perdue and Burr and Loeffler and the others who, like, as it was bearing down on us, they did whatever was necessary in terms of stocks to shore themselves up.
Oh yeah,
it feels like that. It's like this. Yeah. It's like a political equivalent to dumping stock before the storm.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's looting the safe while the building burns. Yeah. You know, that's what it is, and then locking the door and keeping us all inside.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like obviously, when Trump came in, they got another round of the tax cuts, and that was, like $1.8 trillion or something like that. They got these trillions for businesses way easier, way faster, and I haven't heard anyone talk about it in weeks.
We
talk
amazing.
About the tax cuts sometimes. We don't talk about that.
It's amazing. The bailout bill will be like looked on 50 years from now, 100 years from now, by historians as like this kind of just unprecedented fundamental restructuring of the largest economy in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just so breathtaking how quickly it happened, how quickly the system snapped into place.
Patriot Act, but for business, basically.
Yes, we can't even our system is incapable of manufacturing something as simple as a freaking mask, mm-hmm. And they snap into place as soon as the ruling class needs a trillions dollar bailout.
Exactly.
It's absolutely breathtaking. This is why when you look back at history, the only means of collective struggle are this version of mass politics. And we don't have that now. We just don't have it. So we can't even get scraps. We can get the bare minimum of scraps, just to like more or less keep us living, to keep the system going.
Yeah.
But there is no concessions to be wrought from the ruling class at this point. It's really a difficult time. Like things are going to get a lot worse, I suspect. And
I don't know what concessions you need. You got your $1,200, man.
Yeah, just shut the hell up. Yeah.
If you got it, and then you probably didn't.
I still haven't gotten it.
I didn't get anything either. Yeah. And people I know are still having trouble week after week after week getting unemployment for no reason. Nando, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody,
I promise you I'm a cheery guy, John, usually.
I had fun. I can laugh in the face of, I'm very Joker-like in that way.
Yeah.
You have to laugh because otherwise it's too dark. That's how I got these scars. But anyway, Nando, thank you again. Everybody check out the podcast. You can follow along in the rewatch of Entourage with Nando and the crew.
It will put a smile on your face, I promise.
That definitely will. So thank you and have a good one, man.
All right, man. Take it easy.
And for everyone at home, let me do a little bit of catching up on some of the social media before we close things out. This is looking like a bit of a super episode of TDR. John O'Shea had said, some of these are from when Ryan Grimm was on, I apologize, but I want to make sure that I get to them. John O'Shea says, HBJ, if another accusation of sexual harassment comes out against Biden, do you think the tide will turn, or sexual assault? It seems like a kind of thing that would happen more than once. It's entirely possible. No, I'm not confident that any sort of tide would turn. That's depressing, but that's how I feel. And that's not just for Biden, that's for almost any case of something like this. Stefanik says, your kids are adorable, speaking to Ryan Grimm. Gotta love working from home. Exactly, that was nice. Brian says, cute kids. I'll take this instead of pets today. So you got multiple pets. Zaina read yours. Orenda, thank you for your thank you. Charlie says, the capitalist class insists we go back to work because they cannot make money without the working class. 100%. And they don't want to waste time or like allow for time for people to stew and really think about that. Franklin says, I was going to be uppity about living in Wyoming. Then I remember the Indian reservations increase in virus, and I'm humbled. I actually don't know the amount of cases in Wyoming, but stay safe wherever you are. Fred says, was there news on the USPS? So I just jumped in. We did have it prepped, but unfortunately we didn't get to it. But yeah, gigantic Trump and GOP donor has been put in charge of destroying the United States Postal Service effectively. Sage and Candle says, had to watch Firefly. You got it stuck in my head. I am planning to in the near future as well. Dave says, OANN, anagram of OANN. Just saying. interesting. Shay says, I bet he's one of those that support not servicing to gays. Is it a constitutional right then? Are civil liberties violated then? Double standard much? I believe that if you were to invite that individual outside of the public to interview, you would be surprised and scared by a lot that you hear. Name withheld. Dima Kryukov says, hi, she's learning English by listening to your show, so use proper grammar. I will attempt to, and thank you. Lim, thank you for your cool. Fred says, how can you even enforce people wearing masks? I constantly see people without masks. Most of those are like, if I get the Rona, I get the Rona, even in my workplace, WTF. Yeah, unfortunately, it does fall to the individual places to do it, which should not be their responsibility. And anytime like law enforcement gets involved, it generally is either a direct disaster or the response is a disaster. Name withheld says, speaking of masks, how effective are all these neck masks I see people wearing? That I don't know. Better than nothing, I'm sure. Lil Yepper says, to be honest, Bernie never should have dropped out. It is looking more like it would be great if he was still in. Lim, thank you for your super chat. Army of One says, pretty sure we're living in a cyberpunk dystopia. Yes, but without the cool, like, virtual shared universe. Comic Book University says, do you play D&D? Want to join my group? That is very nice of you to invite me. I am far from having the time for even my own RPG, let alone to join one, but thank you for that. That is very nice. And I just read a story, actually, that Tom Morello and a bunch of other celebrities, Vince Vaughn, are playing D&D together these days. I hope remotely. Tyler Sutton says, have you played It's a Wonderful World? If not, do. I have not. I've seen it, but I haven't played it. That's a board game. And thank you for everybody who's commenting on the board game backdrop. I am trying to switch up the games a little bit each day. Let's see. On the TDR live, Voice of Thunder said, how many likes to get Nando to play us a song? See, that's going to take a lot more than 1,000 for us to start doing tricks. Let's see. Matt says, out of all the lobby groups Pelosi decided to give PPP bailout money to, one was conspicuously missing: unions. That's a good point. I actually don't know what, if any, aid they got during those first rounds. And Jasmine had said, credit to Ryan Grimm for being very professional when his children were photobombing him. Yeah, he kept going. You can't rock him. His house could be falling down around him and he'd still deliver his points. So anyway, thank you to everybody who tuned in for the show, everyone who took part in the comments on Twitch, Twitter, and sending the super chats. I really do appreciate it. Tomorrow, we are going to have Brett Ehrlich once again. It's the end of the week, so we will be doing our Garbage People of the Week. We're each going to pick one, and you have an opportunity. Go to the community tab on the TDR YouTube channel, and you can take part in a poll to see who the community pick for Garbage Person of the Week will be, and we'll report that to you tomorrow, along with all the news and everything else. And with that, thank you for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow.